Welcome to The Pivot Point, stories of courage, resilience, and reinvention. I'm your host, Jessica McGann, coach, producer, and creative, whose mission is to normalize the human experience, ignite the soul, and move you from feeling limited to limitless. Stories connect us, and my hope is that within this series, you will find at least one story that resonates with you on a deeply personal level, one that speaks to your soul or your current situation that will motivate you to keep moving forward, inspire you to make bold, brave choices in your own life, and help you feel less alone in the process. In today's episode, I speak with Felicity Steiner, who, like many of us, struggled to find her life partner. The one, the soulmate, the forever person. After multiple failed relationships, she started to notice a pattern. And with total faith that the right person was still out there for her, she started to work with a coach and really do the work to not only better understand who she was attracting and why, but also to deepen the trust that the right person will love her for who she is authentically. Felicity is a former osteopath turned relationship expert for successful single ladies who are looking to find long-lasting love. Felicity started her journey as a student and eventually became a proficient osteopath with over 15 years of experience, building on her knowledge and becoming an expert in the ancient teachings in the art of manifesting and mentoring. Felicity's knowledge of the law of attraction and manifestation goes back to the days of how the ancient Egyptians manifested incredible feats of wonder and unbelievable miracles. This story is all about finding love, not only romantic love, but also self-love, one of my favorite topics to explore. So, without further ado, let's dive in. Hello, Felicity. It is so exciting to have you here today. Thank you so much for joining me on the Pivot Point podcast.
Thank you for having me. It's an absolute pleasure to be here with you today. Thank you.
Now, you are a relationship expert who has gone through your own journey of heartbreak and difficult relationships to finding a partner that you love and are connected with. You're married now? Married now?
Happily married.
And I think this is a hot topic for a lot of people wanting to find that partner and struggling to get there. So maybe you could just start us off by telling me a little bit about what your life was like before you really started doing some personal work here.
Absolutely. And thank you for the question. In a nutshell, my life was one mess after the next. So it really was, at the time, it was me literally surviving one day to the next. And I'm talking both professionally and personally here. So at the time, I was in a relationship with somebody who I really wanted to be with. Maybe not for the right reasons, but I really did want to be with that person. And that person was blowing hot and cold every single day for about 3 years. And that's what made it so difficult to get from one day to the next.
Like never knowing what you're going to kind of get from that person, whether it was love and affection or a fight, you were always kind of on edge. Is that what I'm hearing?
Absolutely. Well, it was more sort of a way that the person had very high standards. And everything I did for that person, for myself, never felt good enough for that person. So I was constantly being asked to change who I was, what I was doing, how I was being, how I was talking, and every day felt like a struggle.
I feel like we hear that term high standards a lot. I just have high standards. I'm really picky. And then that pressure as the other person, it sounds like, to fit into a certain mold. Oh, they have high standards. I want to be a woman of value. I want to be a partner of value. I need to meet those standards in order to be a good partner. And then we try and fit into these boxes that people create for us. Is that a fair reflection?
Absolutely. No, it is, because the more you're trying to please somebody, the more you're doing yourself a disservice. Now, when you're at that level of awareness, you're really trying to please them because you want to be with them. So you're operating from an area of scarcity, lack, neediness, fear. But what you're not understanding is how much it's damaging you in the long run, in the short term, and also in the long term.
How did you realize that the 3-year relationship wasn't for you any longer?
It took me a while to let the penny drop, but it really, I had known it from a long time. It's just that I wasn't listening to myself. I wasn't listening to the internal voice. I wasn't listening to my intuition that was saying, ding, ding, watch out here. Don't make the same mistake again and again. Because I had literally my ego attached to that person and to that relationship and to what I thought that relationship could be like. So it really was, it came to a point where it was just unlivable. The person I was with was just breaking up all the time and coming back, then breaking up and coming back. And it just would drive me crazy.
Can you tell us a little bit about what that felt like in your body to be living in that relationship?
Yeah, that's a great question. It was very, very tough in the chest area. It felt very
Yeah.
tight in the chest area. And in all honesty, I think my breathing patterns were out completely. Shallow breathing all the time, that over a period of days, weeks, and months can do a lot of damage to the body.
Absolutely. I remember being in a relationship similar to that and feeling so anxious all the time and cognitively being able to look and be like, they're nice to me. We're having regular sex. We live together. I can't say, oh, they're doing this. And so it must be me. Like there's nothing wrong. This anxiety must be due to something else. But it really was my body's inner knowing that something was not right in my relationship.
Oh, absolutely. And I can absolutely relate to what you're saying. Now, as a difference to you, I was not living with that person.
Mm-hmm.
But what I did notice, and this is interesting, is that every time I would go up to their door, I would have these horrific butterflies in my stomach. Now, a lot of people will sort of get this one twisted and think it's excitement and emotion. And in all honesty, when I did a bit more research on that, it's your inner being saying, ding, ding, something is off. Please run now for the hills.
Oh, yeah. I feel like so many times we meet people and we feel these butterflies, these intense butterflies, and we
Yeah.
think that it means something good, but you're saying that they can actually be a sign that something's off.
Yeah. And if you're perceptive enough, you will know the difference between the two, whether it is pure excitement or whether this is, your adrenals saying it's time to run.
Is there a question that someone could ask themselves in that moment that you would suggest to help them differentiate between those two different types of butterflies in that moment?
That's a great question. I would say that probably one of the most important questions one can ask ourselves is, why am I feeling like this right now? What is it about this particular context what is it about this that is making me feel this way about
Yeah.
this context? And the answer will pop up. It will
Yeah.
come.
Curiosity is a fantastic tool to use in life, especially when we're trying to learn more about ourselves. So when did things really begin to unravel? Like you ended things with this partner and then you got into another relationship. How
That's
did that one
right.
go?
That was a very odd transition. At the time, I was working as an osteopath in my own clinic, and this second person had found me through a mutual patient and had just come to the clinic to see me, and I didn't know who this person was. And in all honesty, I was very, very heartbroken from the first relationship, and I wasn't yet healed.
Mm.
And I was love bombed by the second person, which had this very sort of destabilizing effect. And I fell into the trap right away. Again, another person who had very high standards, very similar profile, both of them very high-powered men, had incredible positions as CEOs, and they both had the same pattern of behavior. And I fell into the trap both times. So that was, again, another rocky relationship where from one day to the next, I never knew whether that was going to last or not. And it was at the whim of that person.
So how long were you in a relationship with your 3-year relationship's identical twin?
The second time round, it lasted just under a year.
Okay.
And then I was literally, again, the same pattern for about a year thereafter, 12 months thereafter. That person would come back into my life every month and then exit, come back and exit for about 11 months after.
You mentioned that they love bombed you at the beginning. For our listeners who maybe don't understand that term, would you mind explaining that?
Of course, that's when the person is literally bombarding you with a lot of love and affection, overly giving you attention, and you feel like you're literally the only woman in the world because they are being so attentive towards you. However, it is a facade, it is a masquerade.
And it can feel like such a high to receive that, especially if you're heartbroken or you're devastated or you're sad and you're just so desperately wanting a partner in your life.
Absolutely.
It can be so, what's the word I'm looking for? Hypnotizing, mesmerizing. Yeah. You can fall into this nothing else matters kind of state.
Absolutely. And also what they're doing is they're filling a void which one still has inside of oneself. But it's only a temporary short-term facade, because the only void we can actually fill is if we actually do it, we do the work ourselves, not have somebody else do it for us.
What led to the end of that relationship?
Again, that was that person that decided for X amount of reasons that we could not be together. Again, another person who was very hot and cold, had a long history of relationships which didn't work. And that's something I'd like to emphasize for both of them. Mm-hmm. They both had a history of relationships which didn't work. And they both had very high standards for the women they wanted to date. So it seemed like nothing was ever good enough for either. And then they both literally did everything to sabotage the relationship. So that's how they both ended.
When you were at your lowest, what was your mental and emotional state like? Like, what kind of thoughts ran through your mind at that time?
It was constant anxiety. It really was. Am I going to be good enough to be with this person? Is this person going to like what I'm wearing, what I'm doing, what I'm saying, how my hair is done, etc.? Are they going to be judgmental about the kind of makeup I wear, the kind of nail color? It came down to really, really tiny details. But it was always me second guessing myself. And that is a place I would not wish on anybody in this world.
Mm-hmm. So that relationship has ended and you're single now.
Yeah.
And what I'm hearing is finding that partner was really important to you. You wanted the marriage. You wanted a lifetime commitment. What did you decide needed to change? Or did you even recognize that anything needed to change just yet?
Oh, absolutely. In all honesty, I got to rock bottom, really, really rock bottom. And I had to still show up in clinic for my patients. And the pressure of that was very, very heavily weighted on my shoulders. So what I did is I got myself a mentor, a coach. I hired a private coach. I hired a private mentor because I knew that something had to change within me for me to start attracting the kind of high value man that I actually wanted to be with. And I completely misdiagnosed that one. So I needed some professional help and support to be able to understand that. That was the first thing I did. And that was a very huge turning point in my life. That was a pivotal moment. That's when I said, all right, things need to change. I invested, a nice amount of money in that mentor, which is something I'd never done before, but I believed that it was going to work. And my belief in that made it work.
Well, congratulations on that, on you for stepping into that. Working with a mentor and a life coach can just be such a game changer because they have you reflecting on so much stuff that you don't even know is sitting inside of you that is driving your ship without you even knowing. What needed to change? What did you learn was missing for you that was driving your ship into toxic relationship or toxic men?
In all honesty, I think it was the lack of support I had around me at the time, and also the lack of self-esteem I had for myself. So I was trying to overcompensate, and my overcompensation was attracting men who they themselves were hiding a lack of self-esteem within themselves, even if they had incredibly grand careers. Because as we know, like attracts like. So the lack of self-esteem within me attracted somebody who had a grand career, but a lack of self-esteem within him. And those two vibes came together. And when I wanted to expand and take the relationship to the next level, it didn't match up. It really didn't match up with that person. And that's what caused it to drift, well, to separate, to stop and to separate.
It's so interesting how our relationship with ourselves deeply affects our relationship with others. I know for me that in my life, I had too been on this journey to finding my partner, and I dated so many people and I really put myself out there. And I got to a point in my life where I felt like everything was in place. I had the job, I had the friends, I had a great apartment, I had money in my bank account, and I just didn't have the partner. And I literally had a panic attack one Christmas, like a severe panic attack where I hyperventilated in my dad's basement, and he had to like come down and do breathing techniques because that yearning and that desire for that love just meant so much to me. And I was just like, where is he? But because I had done so much work, that when I was able to find that partner, we were both in such good places in our lives where we loved ourselves and I loved our lives, that we made each other's lives better rather than looking to each other to fix anything within each other. And for the first time in my life, I'm still with that partner, and he's the only partner I've had that's gone over a year. Like, we've been together for over 3 years now, but it took me a long time to get to that place in my life.
Well, that's beautiful to hear, and congratulations for that. That's incredible. And I hear what you say about that, because you mentioned it was at Christmas time and you were in your father's basement. And I think, this is so heavy loaded for so many single women out there. Christmas, family events, marriages, weddings, and they're going at it alone. And I know I've been there so many times. I was the only single woman at a family event, and I would dread going to those events. I wouldn't be hyperventilating on the day. I'd be hyperventilating a week before.
Yeah. Oh yeah. It's stressful. I do too. Like, once December hits and that there's all those parties and stuff, when I was single, I would just go, oh my God, I can't do this. I can't do this all by myself again. It sounds like from your journey that there was a big part of it that was about finding self-love. Is that fair to say? And if so, what did you do to help you access that love?
Yeah, it's absolutely fair to say. And I would say that from the self-love, there comes self-worth, worthiness, and self-confidence. And I put that in the umbrella of self-love because, in all honesty, every single mismatch in a relationship is coming from that. If we just boil everything down to the root cause, it is going to be a lack of self-love, a lack of self-worthiness, and a lack of self-confidence or self-respect. So that, for me, is one of the most important key factors to start really, really looking at when somebody's looking to have a healthy, committed relationship with a high caliber partner.
What is the definition of a high caliber partner?
That's a great question. Obviously, for different people, it's going to mean different things.
Right.
It means for me, it was somebody, a man who had the same values as me, the same outlook, who was ready for a commitment. And when I say commitment, a marriage, who had the same vision in life, and who had very, very, very similar principles as well.
And how early do you start investigating that with someone? Because I hear it all the time from my friends, especially, of feeling so timid about having deeper conversations about what do they envision for their future? How many kids do you want? What's your financial, like, big hitting questions? When is the appropriate time, would you say, to start having those like serious life journey questions / conversations?
Well, that's a great question, because in all honesty, to answer that, I would say it really depends where you're at in your life. Because when you're 20, you're not going to have the same conversation as when you're 40. And I specialize with women who are 40 plus. So the time spans are very different than when you're 20. 20, you've got lots of time in front of you. Or when you're 30, you still have some time in front of you. But when you hit 40 plus, most of the women have already had children or have been in relationships before, and they want to collapse time. They don't want relationships to take forever for them to understand whether that person's going to be in a committed relationship or not. So in answer to that question, I would say at this stage in life, I'm a really big believer that putting your cards out on the table straight out is the best way. Transparency is the way.
I agree. And I also agree for even for the 20-year-olds, because there's 20-year-olds who want a relationship, there's 20-year-olds who just want to date, and there's 20-year-olds who just want to fool around and have fun. And each one of them are valid. Whatever you're looking for in a relationship is valid. And we live in a day and age where it's not like you have to date, you get married, then you move in with each other, then you make the babies. We don't have that same pressure or structure any longer. At least I don't feel that myself. And so having honest conversations and just being honest about what you want, like, hey, I think you're great. I'm really just looking for something physical right now. If that works for you, like, let's do this thing, rather than putting someone else at risk of being hurt and leading someone on. And then you yourself are going to be anxious, being like, oh, do they want to talk to me? Oh, they don't want to talk to me more. I don't want to talk. I just want to fool around. Like, it just clears away all that bullshit right away if you can just be honest about what you want.
Absolutely. And that comes down to communication. And also facing the fact that that person in front of you might just turn around and say, thank you, but no, thank you. So then we go into the fear of rejection, which is a huge fear for most people, unless they've actually dealt with it, is, the fear of being out of the tribe, let's put it that way, which is very similar to death. And I think, well, if we take back to prehistoric times, if you're out of the tribe, you're done.
Yeah. And people have such a, like, as human beings, we want to belong. We want to fit in. We want to be wanted.
Absolutely. And I would say there's a lot of people out there that would rather, maybe say porcupined in order to be accepted by that other person, like not say the truth, than actually be upfront. And I would say, please, whatever happens, the best way forward is to be upfront and transparent with yourself and with the other person.
Knowing all of this and knowing your past relationships and having this conversation about what some really good green flags are, can you tell me a little bit about how you met your current husband and how you knew that this one was the one for you?
Absolutely. I'd love to share that with you. And it's a great story because I literally did all the opposite of what I'd been doing prior to that. And I hadn't premeditated this or anything, but I'd got to the point where I was now working closely with this mentor, this coach, one-on-one. And I'd come to the point where I'd been so severely hurt in the past that there was something inside of me that kind of snapped almost. And it's almost as if I became completely immune to every other man out there. And then COVID happened. So the whole world shut down. And what
Time for dating.
Yeah, it was a crazy time. So the whole world shut down. And at the time, I had, a bunch of people around me. And one of those people was somebody who I didn't really know. I'd seen them over and over again because we used to go to the same sports club, but I didn't know that person. And that person is my now husband, and had said to me, look, why don't we just go out? We've got a few hours a day where we can be outside. Why don't we just go out for a walk? And he loved motorbikes. And so we'd go out on a bike ride. And I thought to myself, this is fine. This is just what I need. I'm just not going to put up any makeup. I'm not going to get my high heels on. I'm not going anywhere fancy like what I was doing with the other guys. I don't need to show who I am or try and be somebody I'm not. I'm just going to put a pair of jeans on, get on this bike, and then go for, a 2-hour drive. And that's exactly what I did.
Yeah, it sounds like the pandemic almost like forced you to take away a facade of some sorts of pretending who you are or putting on a specific version of yourself, as if that version of yourself was the most lovable and most dateable version. And you just stepped into it authentically who you are without trying to impress anyone, just being you.
Absolutely. And there's something very powerful about that, because
Absolutely.
when you're just you don't give a damn what other people think. And that's exactly the attitude I had. And that was the winning attitude. I didn't care. And that's when, boom, he was just magnetized. And I didn't see it coming.
Funny how that happens.
It is. And, being on a motorbike and having those conversations out in the wild, going up a mountain, you get to learn a lot about that person without the fancy dinners and the fancy cars and the fancy wining and dining experiences, which is all decoration for the actual relationship.
Yeah, I met my current partner during the pandemic. We met online during the pandemic. And again, like, just like you, like I couldn't go to a movie. We couldn't go to movies. We couldn't go to parties. We couldn't go to bars or socialize. Like, everything we did was just us connecting and us talking, laying in hammocks and dreaming and doing long walks. And the connection was, I feel like we've dated for 6 years because of the intensity of what dating in the pandemic really did for people. Another thing that you kind of really pointed out is, like, you were just you. You just showed up authentically as you. And not only does that feel really good, but when we can show up authentically as ourselves, we can also attract the people who are meant for us. If we're pretending to be someone else, if we're pretending to be a different version of ourselves, then we're not attracting our people. We're attracting someone who's attracted to that facade. You just showed up as you. And so he was able to see you and fall in love with that. And you didn't have to pretend.
And there's something so refreshing about not having to pretend.
Totally.
It's exhausting having to pretend. Yeah, I love what you said about when you're having to dress up as a facade, you're going to attract somebody who loves that facade. And I think that's a really important point to actually highlight, because when you're attracting, for anybody out there who's listening to this, if you're putting out a facade, you're going to be attracting somebody who also themselves is putting out a facade. Ooh. So you're not getting the real deal out of that person, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it makes total sense.
Yeah.
Because like you said, even at the beginning of this, energy attracts like energy.
Absolutely.
So the facade attracts other facades.
Yeah, that's one to watch out.
Fascinating. And would you say that you were able to step into your authenticity because of the work that you did with your coach and mentor?
Yes, absolutely. It really brought me back to who I was. It got me out of my comfort zone. Mm-hmm. And that's where the magic happens. It's when we are really taken out of our comfort zones. It's not within the comfort zone that things are going to happen or that we're going to have those pivotal moments in life. It's really out of the comfort zone. And I felt very accountable to that person, to that mentor, but also to myself, because I'd invested in myself. Mm-hmm. So once I had that skin in the game, I said to myself, right, I've got to make this work. I've got to make this work. Yes. And then suddenly all these resources come out from within you and you do make it work.
What have you really taken away from this experience and this journey to finding the love of your life?
The most important for me is, in all honesty, there is something so powerful and so wealthy about being your authentic self. And I'm not just talking about relationships, I'm talking about all cross sections of life. And I've actually coined this phrase, which happens to be one of my favorite phrases, is love is the source of all wealth. Love is the author of all wealth. And I'm talking all wealth here, all abundance, because the love you have for yourself is what's going to determine the kind of life you're going to live, including the person you're going to pull into your life. And that could be a very wealthy life or a very poor life, depending on the love you have for yourself.
Felicity, I couldn't agree with you more. I am 100% in agreement with you. I like to say, love yourself, love your life. Like, when we love ourselves and we know ourselves, we expect more from the world around us. We expect more from the people in our lives because we care about who we are. We know that we deserve good things. And also, I love how you describe love as wealth. I remember growing up, my parents used to say to us that we were so rich with love. And that was something that they would say to me so much. And I love that.
It's not just about money, but I'd like to just add another comment here, if I may.
Yeah.
It's interesting because economists have actually tried to get their 2 cents worth within this. And there have been many, many studies showing that people who are happily married, and the salient point is happily married, not just together in a relationship, but happily married. tend to be twice more wealthy, at least twice more wealthy than those who are in a very happy relationship or single, or even 4 times more wealthy in the household. And that's not just down to the relationship, that's because of the energy they're portraying within themselves and around themselves, which are magnetizing other opportunities into their lives.
Are you saying that energy and happiness can actually bring more financial wealth into your life?
Absolutely. And I really,
Love
really
that.
want so many people to hear that, because it is so important. And I think when people let that one land, it's not just about the money, it's about the energetics behind the wealth of love.
So when people say follow your joy and the money will come, they really mean it.
Absolutely.
So where are you now in life? Where are you at?
Right now, I'm in a super happy relationship, marriage, which is beautiful. I've never been happier before. We've bought a beautiful home. I've now transitioned from osteopathy to actually elevating, helping, and supporting women over 40 have just that, have the relationship of their dreams with their version of a high value man, and also embracing the wealth of love, because there is such a great message to get out there into this world. And there are so many people in this world who can benefit from that, and
Absolutely.
changing the world one woman at a time.
And I love that you have that background of I can't, oh my gosh, I'm going to embarrass myself saying this. Osteopathy? Yeah, did I say that? Because that is that's a medical, I'm going to butcher this too. I work with an osteopath, and they work with assessing the entire body. Like you go to them with your sore shoulder, and they'll look at you entirely to figure out what could be playing into that sore shoulder. And as a coach myself, I know that a lot of what we do is not just listening to people, it's observing them. It's seeing how they're holding their bodies, where they're looking, the tone of their voice, to really understand what's happening for them. That's like a superpower you're bringing into your practice, I assume, because you can bring that into your coaching. Is that fair to say?
Absolutely, 100% spot on. And I feel very blessed to be able to have that. And what I would say is that it's very interesting what you've just said, because 90% of communication is nonverbal.
Oh,
So how do they portray themselves? How do they hold themselves? As you said, where is their eye movement going? Where are their eye movements going? What is the tone of their voice? You can just learn so much about a person by just observing them. And what I would say to any woman out there going out on a date, just spend the whole date observing the person in front of you. You'll get so much more out of it.
how do they hold themselves? Where are they putting their attention? How do they listen to you? Do you feel heard? Those are questions that I would start with, at least.
Absolutely.
What do you hope the listeners take away from our conversation today and your story?
I hope they really take away that they have everything that it takes within each and every one of them in order to make their relationship work, their relationship, and much, much more, their winning relationship. That they may need some extra help and support. Okay, that's granted, but the richness is within them. It's not external to them, it's within them. And if they've been in a tough spot before, if they've had a series of bad relationships, they can turn over. It doesn't mean that the past equals the future. The past does not equal the future, but that really is their call.
That's beautiful. And you don't need to do it alone. Felicity takes clients, and you can work with her directly if you are inspired by her story. Felicity, how do people get in touch with you if they are inspired and connected and they're like, I need what Felicity has. I need to do that same journey for myself. How can they reach you?
They can reach me on my Facebook profile through Felicity Steiner. I have a group called Magnetic and Matched, and they're welcome to join the group. I've got free trainings, free resources, high value gifts in there for them, one-on-one personalized support as well. So it's well worth joining the group. And the website, steinersuccesssolutions.com.
Amazing. And as always, I will have all of that linked down below for you guys. So you don't have to question or the spelling of anything. You can just go to the show notes and click away and find your way into Felicity's world right now in this very moment. Thank you so much, Felicity, for sharing your story and your expertise with us today. I feel so connected to your story myself and your journey, and I'm just really grateful for you taking this time with me today.
Look, I'm so grateful. It's been an absolute pleasure. So thank you very much. And I hope it's helped as many people out there as possible.
If you enjoyed today's episode, please consider liking, subscribing, and letting us know your thoughts in the comments below. It truly means the world to me to hear from you. New episodes will be available every Saturday, both on YouTube and wherever you get your podcasts. And if you would like to learn more about my work as a coach, today's guest, or have a story that you would like to share on the Pivot Point, check out the episode description for more information. Now, time for the legal stuff. This podcast is presented to you solely for educational and entertainment purposes. I may be a professionally certified coach myself, but hosting a podcast is not coaching. This podcast should not be used in substitution of working with a licensed therapist, doctor, coach, or other qualified professionals. Copy that? Amazing. See you on the next episode. Nothing but love, Jess.